Yeah, I mean, you've got some great process stuff on your,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
um,
cool. Since
yeah, I mean, this is like awesome behind the scenes. I
yeah.
remember seeing this stuff years ago, and you had such great character rigging going on.
hmm
Were you using some kind of rigging engine
No,
or tool set, or was that just
no,
puppet pins and
just
layers and
just
rotation?
that's it. Just that's it. Nothing. I don't use rigs at all. But not because I'm against them. It's just because I feel like I can have like better and more organic animation if I just don't rig my characters.
Yeah.
So I have better control. It's more painful. The animation's a little bit more painful, but I believe I can have more organic movements.
I mean, this was just the most unique film, and the frames are fantastic. You
It
always
was,
do such incredible work with textures.
yeah.
I don't know how, do you feel you do a lot, you spend a lot of time experimenting with the different kind of texture treatments?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would say yes, for sure. Because working with collage could be dangerous, like
Hmm.
because if you overwhelm your frame with a lot of textures,
Hmm.
it might not be like super smooth. So we have to take care like with the shadows, not having it's just like work with the 3D and when you find out the ambient occlusion for the very first time, all your render is going to be super dark and you don't know why. And oh, but the shadows, we have some shadows here, but I don't know why it's so dark until we find the way that, okay, I have to make it everything more smooth and tone down the dark shadows. It's just like with the collage thing, like you have to be careful with the amount of shadows and not try to use textures that gonna play well with different other textures, because
Yeah.
if you're using like a crazy pattern and like there are some certain things that you can combine visually that's gonna create like a weird look.
Yeah.
So that
You
if you
always have such fantastic kind of ink bleeds or paint bleed type
yeah.
effects.
hmm
It seems like you're spending a lot of time thinking about interesting ways to do
yeah.
those. Build up, is some of this Photoshop timeline where you're just adding, or is some of this
Yes, no,
masking?
it's super simple. I can explain to you.
Yeah.
This is a Photoshop. What I do is I create an action, you know,
Hmm.
and I use like the Kyle. Oh man, I
Yeah,
forgot.
Kyle Webster's killer
That's it.
brushes.
That's it.
Sure.
Yeah, I use all those brushes, and I like a draw a brush here with the action recording my movements. And when I hit play, I'm gonna see that kind
Hmm.
of brushes get drawn on screen by its own. I don't have like to redraw. Like, so what I do is I record my screen
Oh, wow.
and I hit the play in my actions to draw this. So I record in a very like high definition way.
Hmm.
After that, I use this as a mat,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So you're using a screen record
a
of
screen.
it. Oh,
Yes,
wow. Okay.
it's a super
That's
like
clever. No, I like that.
yeah.
That's great.
I've learned from a friend of mine. He taught me that. But yes, you just use an action to record in Photoshop. You record an
Hmm.
action
Sure.
and you draw like you can like draw whatever you want there in your screen and it's going to be recorded. And when you hit play in your action, it's going to play like it's going to repeat what you just like drew, and you're going to see like this you can see here in the first square what you're going to see on your Photoshop. And you
Yeah.
just have to record your screen, you know
Yeah.
make sure your mouse is not in front of anything, and you can
Yeah.
use that as a mat. It's a super tricky thing to
That's a
do.
great idea.
Yeah.
So you're
I don't
spending a
know
little money on like kind of like stock photos of naked bodies, so you can build
if
out these
yes,
these
for this
custom
project, yes.
rigs.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. For this project, I bought some images because it's not easy to find like high
perfectly.
resolution.
Yeah,
Yeah, perfectly something that you can apply for.
And it seems like you're also having to do some custom painting in Photoshop, taking the hair
Sure.
off of her ear, for
Yes,
example.
yes, just to modify a little bit.
Now, this is like one of the oldest ideas in visual imagery almost. These, I don't know what the word is, a kind of human body with, you know,
Yes,
animal heads. That seems like that goes back thousands of years, but
totally, yes.
something that is rarely seen in kind of a modern context, which I think gave this piece just like so much visual
It's
interest. And um,
yeah.
focusing on these deadly sins, I think just gives it such an
Mhm,
interesting kind of conceptual spin too. Come
mhm.
back out to some of your other projects here. And so you got to do some work for this was the new documentary about
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Rogers.
I haven't seen it yet. I
Oh
really,
man, you
really want
should.
to.
It's a really powerful stuff, man. I like.
Yeah.
I'm from Brazil. I didn't know like the history of Mr. Rogers,
Mm,
and I've learned so much about him during the process of this documentary. And when I watched the movie for the very first time, it hit me really hard. This guy was such a beautiful spirit on
yeah.
earth, and I had such a blessing working in this project for sure.
I know. I keep hearing how everyone is just like bawling walking out of the theater with this film. So here, I mean, your challenge was a little different here. You're doing some character design. This looks like a
Yes.
screenshot from your Frame.io app
Yes.
going through the various versions. So
Mhm.
they had you building out kind of just an animated sequence. Was this like for the
Yeah,
beginning?
it's because no, it's they this is just a reel of all the
Mm,
animations. So we have a couple other more, and but I don't want to. I wanted to create this super short reel for this piece in particular because I think this kind of project you should watch the whole thing, you know, to
yeah,
understand the
see it in
context and
context.
the yes. But it's basically we portray through illustrations part of Mr. Rogers' childhood, you know.
Mm,
So his challenges as a kid and his lack of friends.
mm,
He was a super lonely human being when he was like a kid, and we explored these using illustrations and portrayed him as the Daniel the tiger,
mm.
which is like a huge. I don't know if everybody knows everybody's United States here, but he's Mr. Roger was a great guy that he spoke a lot of. Uh, he used to talk in different and really hard themes with kids. You know, like he talks about death, divorce, things like
Mm,
that,
yeah,
in a very human way.
yeah. Yeah, everyone should check out that film. I wanted to pull
Yeah.
up one of your more recent
Yes.
pieces. If you want to give us a little bit of the context
Yes.
behind this one.
This is for Marnie. Marnie, it's a fashion brand in Italy, and they invited different directors every time that they are releasing a new
Mm,
store. And they have a store here in New York, not here in New York, but I'm in LA, but they have in New York, they have all over the world, they have this store. And they're about to open this new store in Rome.
mm,
And they want to create this video so they can use in store and on their social media to something that was fun, something that was super captivating, and they wanted to be in black and white. And in the end, we can see a bunch of colors.
mm,
And a bunch of these elements that you can see through all the piece, it's part of their brand concept. And in particular for this story, each story has a specific uh, kind of elements, let's say.
mm,
For Rome, for example, you can see sometimes there's a little bull where she's grabbing a bull, and like a Vespa was part of something really powerful in Rome in the 60s, part of the culture. So there's some element keys here and there that they want me to use, and this actually is this girl here, she's using a Marnie's clothing with the shoes kind of thing. And it was super cool working with them because they gave me total freedom besides of using these elements and like super tiny little rules like black and white kind of thing. They were super supportive. They bought the idea, and it was super cool project to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struck by just how, compelling a lot of it is in this first part of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
How it's pretty simple. You're using a lot of just circles and squares, kind of repeating elements here.
And those are all parts of the patterns of the store. Like they send me this spreadsheet. I don't know if it's in the architecture world. I don't know. It's something that you can see the store and the patterns that they use on the floors of the store. They're all geometrical. We have a lot of squares, a lot of circles, and rectangles. All these things are part of the decoration and part of the brand of each store. So
yeah, this frame I thought was interesting, the kind of optical illusion-y feel of it.
Yes.
A lot of work with gradients, which I think is really interesting. I wonder how complicated some of these started to get in animation.
Yes, it's kind of working with gradients. It's not always easy, than working with flat colors, because sometimes like you have like a super light edge going on there, and these edges might blend with the background, and it's really tricky, and it involves a lot of experimentations. And
yeah, did you have to like bake a lot of this into flat layers in Photoshop to get them just right?
No, these I did in straight in After Effects because I wanted to test. I made those. There's a plugin for After Effects called Long Shadows. You probably heard of it. So I created these gradients using long shadows, and those are just paths that I built up in After Effects.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I created like this extrusion, let's say, using this long shadow plugin, and they give you a great tool there, so you can play with gradients and create this kind of crazy world. It was super fun.
Yeah, it came out fantastic, and so yeah, there was some of what you were saying about just those like meaningful elements.
Yeah, like this kind of element of the story, and they want to make sure to have it there.
Yeah, the character design is really interesting too.
Yeah,
kind of crazy proportions.
It's basically, if you notice, it's basically what people are doing right now. I just get like the 2D kind of proportions that people are using there.
Yeah.
And I just created like a different visual for that. Instead of being like a super 2D animation, what if I made like a real person to look like a weird designy, illustration, like with different proportions, like big foot, small head, things like that. And I've tried the first time that I've tried that to use different proportions for humans like that. It was for a piece that I did for the New York Times. It's in my portfolio there. It's where it was the first time that I really used photos with weird shapes. Just scroll down. It's a little bit more. Yeah, this guy's about to fight. No, not this one.
Oh, I missed it. The one to the left there.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yes.
I remember this one. Yeah. The interpreter.
Yeah. So that was the first time that I.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems to fit with the kind of surrealist.
Yeah, it's super. It's super weird kind of thing, and.
I always love how you match the feel of the animation with the kind of roughness where, I don't know if you're using a
Yeah.
lot of hold frames or if you're playing
Mhm.
with frame rate playback.
I use a lot of posterized time.
Mm,
You know, it's a native kind of thing in After Effects, and I think it and I try to work in twos, and I just turned my frame rate to 12, you
yeah.
know, because I feel like for this kind of visuals, they kind of ask for this
Yeah.
rough feeling and not too smooth animation, you know, like it kind of, it feels like if I make something that looks more like a stop motion in a way,
Mm.
it will be more pleasant to see it, you know, instead of having a super smooth animation. I think it will work very well.
Yeah. I think another thing that's great, like about a piece like this, that's really useful for people who are kind of more on the beginner end of doing their own custom
Mhm.
films, is
Mhm.
the value of the hard cut. Like in
Mhm.
MoGraph Mentor and other people I've worked with, they really struggle with how do I come up with cool transitions, or they
Mhm.
spend all this time thinking about morphing things. And
Mhm.
um, you know, a lot of times your work is these beautiful compositions,
Mhm.
and then you just hard cut to the
Yeah.
next shot or the next concept. And
It's just about storytelling. You don't have to
yeah,
have like a super crazy transition to do a good piece, you know. Transitions is just like again, I was seeing like a lot of people doing a bunch of transitions that I kind of got tired of doing that, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not gonna try to create like a super cool transition just like randomly to have a good transition here, you know. If it's
yeah,
not a good fit for the story, I won't put in there, you know.
yeah.
So
No, absolutely. I think
yeah.
that's good wisdom, just focusing on the right things. And like a piece
Yes.
like this has so many interesting visual metaphors
Mm-hmm.
built in.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know.
I just don't want the transition to be a distraction for the main information, you know.
Yeah,
So
certainly.
yeah.
And this is a really beautiful piece. This encapsulates kind of your style, I think, in a
Mm-hmm.
really interesting way. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes remaining. I'm going to make
Mm-hmm.
sure, I feel I'm missing some chat questions.
Sure.
And everybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to start getting some of those in now. Lida says, how do you drive your style exploration? Let me stop sharing. We can kind of come back to
Okay.
this format
Uh-huh.
here.
Cool.
So yeah, how about that, Ariel? Some of your style exploration.
Again, I have this collage background already established in my roots, you know, like it's how I started the animation. I'm a huge fan of Monty Python animations. Terry Gittins, it's like great guy. Started all that, and again, I watched a lot great things out there. I've learned a lot with great people, and I'm just trying to mix things up. You know, I love mixed media. I don't want to be stuck in one style. I don't want to be doing just 3D or just 2D. I like to explore and bring all those things together to maybe create like a one giant monster style or something like that. But
Yeah,
in other words, I like to explore things. I like to have fun with the visual.
yeah. So Antoine, and we may have kind of covered this already. Can you explain not rigging your characters? What's the
Mm-hmm.
alternative besides cell?
Uh, for not rigging, it's nothing wrong about rigging the characters. You know, it's just a personal options for me because
And the
uh,
alternative is to just have layers, set pivot points, rotational points,
hit
use
points
the
or
puppet pin tool if you want to do kind of overlap or
yes,
squash and stretch.
that's
So it
yeah,
is a rig in a sense, but just
it's
not.
a rig it's not a conventional rig. You
Yeah,
know, there are some moments in my process, like for example, I'm animating like a super simple action or an action that I know that's not gonna demand a lot of tweaks, and sometimes I do rig my characters, and when I do, I usually use the GVK, you know, which is the most famous. Of course, we have like Rubber Hose today nowadays to do a lot of great and amazing 2D rigs. and it only depends what you want to achieve with your style and animation. Particularly for me, I think it's easier if I don't read my characters, you know, and it's more painful because sometimes I have to, you know, kind of go like kind of same style of like a cell animation in a way, but it's worth it for sure, for me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone was asking, it might just be mesh, deforming the mesh manually.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're using any of the mesh distortion
I
stuff or if
use
it's, yeah.
I use a lot of liquify
Mm,
to mainly to bend the heads up and down. I use a lot of the warp mesh, After Effects kind of thing. Uh, corner pins. I do a lot of things like that. It's mostly there's no plugin actually. It's all native, you know.
yeah.
So I use all that a lot.
Let's see. Dwayne says collage background is key. Yes. Luke says I really like how disruptive your thinking is. It's refreshing.
Oh, that's cool.
Absolutely. The proportions are interesting. So what's on your horizon? Are you content to be this kind of independent director? Do you want to start a larger shop at some point?
You
What do you?
know, this is the kind of question that I've been asking myself for a very long time. I
Yeah.
don't have the answer for that for sure at the moment, but I feel like in the future for sure. I think I won't be able to be sitting here and to be doing this what I'm doing for a very long time. You know, I'm getting old. I'm getting tired of
Sure.
animating, and maybe I can. Of course, thinking about future, I have to create something more stable, like an asset or something more
Hmm.
solid in a
Yeah.
way, you know. And I think maybe having my own shop could be something in the horizon for me, but I don't have plans for now, but maybe in the future. This is something that goes in my head for sure.
Yeah. What's your advice to, the aspiring young directors here and designers and
Mhm.
animators?
I would say I think it's I'm gonna just repeat what I just said, you know, like it's okay to use references, it's okay to emulate people's work, but try to use it to learn and how to master that craft so you can push that to the next level. And not always I don't think this is a professional a profession for us to settle, you know. Try always to explore different things, you
Hmm.
know. Try to be different, you know. Try to have fun, you
Hmm.
know. That's the most key.
Yeah, that experimentation,
Experiment, yes,
exploration.
that's it.
And when you're in a position to do personal projects, it's you can kind of have that opportunity to
it's a
play with different things. And
it's a great way to it's the best way to learn, to display yourself, like display your work, to put your work out there and to have fun, you know, because there's no clients involved. It's just
yeah.
you know, it's your thing. So you can do whatever you want. You can try technical wise, like do you want to do a different kind of animation, After Effects, stop motion, try that, visuals, you know. It's
Yeah.
great.
And to not be discouraged if you're newer to this. And I think Ariel at the beginning was saying been doing this almost 15 years,
Yes.
that it can take some time and you can build a technical foundation,
Uh-huh.
do 20, 30, 40, 50 projects,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't really come overnight, and that it can
No,
take a
no.
lot of time and a lot of exploration. And I'd say the other thing too, though, that I just love about your work is just like leaning into what you like, what you think is
Mm-hmm.
interesting, what you think is compelling, and
Mm-hmm.
um, allowing yourself like the permission to have a really defined portfolio.
Yeah.
Like if you think a style is interesting,
Mm-hmm.
based on like your example, it seems like it's working out pretty well for you to fill up a portfolio things that feel like there's a bit of a common thread running through them, even though there's definitely different styles in there.
Yes.
That you don't have to feel some pressure to be, you know, a jack of all trades. Oh, I have to be able to
No,
do
of
every
course
single
not.
thing in the
Of course
industry.
not. Of course not. You know, like in the beginning, of course, if you want to do that, I think it's important for you to understand, you know, like how the 3D works, you know, how this world of 3D works. You don't have to be a master. You don't have to be a modeler. I have no idea how those guys create all those cool shits in the 3D world, but I know how does it work. I know what is an ambient occlusion. I know what is a global illumination. So it's good for you to understand the process. So when you become like a director or when you want to direct a project, you know how to talk to people. You know what is possible to do. You know what you can ask so this person can do. You don't have to be a badass cell animation, but it's good for you to know what is to animate in twos, what is to animate, what is a pencil test, you know. So
Yeah.
it's good so you can talk to the professional that's going to work for you or it's going to work with you in the task that you're not very good at, but you
Yeah.
can communicate, you know. But you don't have to be good in everything, not at all, really.
100%. So a couple last questions here. Alex says, where did you put Sins initially? Just on Vimeo, or did you market it somehow?
Just Vimeo, and I sent a bunch of emails with that, you know, like send it to motionographer, send it to Stash, send it to a bunch of people, you know, I create like this mailing list because it was my visit card as well. I wanted to tell the world I was becoming a freelancer. So the main idea was not to promote myself to the world. It was to get work, you know, from studios actually,
Yeah.
and say, okay, I'm here, and I sent to a bunch of people for sure.
This is something I've really come to believe too, that the value of like a single really interesting piece that you really care about and you really put a lot into is a kind of really impressive business card if it came out, you know, it's something that you're proud of, versus doing a bunch of 5-second things, you know, necessarily to try to fill up a portfolio. I think having something that's really compelling can say almost more about you. So question from Luke, how did you apply to get into Buck and Roger? What was your real like back then?
When I moved here to United States, I came because Roger hired me and they worked on my visa, my work visa. And I would say that I was a bit raw, you know. I wasn't like really good actually. I was an okay designer, and then I usually I had this great sense of animation, so I animated very well all the time. But I wasn't a great designer, for sure. I did a lot of broadcasting kind of thing, and Roger was leading to that at the time. Now they're doing a lot of great work, but at the time they did a lot of things for broadcast, and I think that was the kind of thing that led me to them. But when I moved here, it was kind of my mind, you know, blow, because there was a lot of inspiring things in Los Angeles, like a lot of, we have like this huge art district here and a lot of people, you know. It's different to work in another country where you have actual an industry. So I get to know a lot of designers, and we exchange informations, websites, and names of people, and all those kinds of things want you to get better, you know, like you wanted to get better, you know. And I had a friend at the time working at Buck, and I got to a point at Roger that I was doing well, but I was just doing this kind of projects, you know, and I wanted to do different things. I wanted to expand my design kind of explorations. And I've heard that they had this opening at Buck, and I sent my stuff to Ryan. They like it, and I, I I was working with them for 2 years, and yeah, it was great. But it's just network. Network helps a lot, you know. for sure.
So let's see, Kenza says, did you work in you? So you were in-house at Buck. I think we already covered that.
Yeah.
Luke says, what would your advice be getting into studios like that? I feel like you just covered that a little bit there. The networking is super important. Having the portfolio as strong as you possibly can, obviously, is going to be essential. Anastasia says, what do you think were some of the key things that helped you become a better designer?
Again, I think it was the exploration.
Mm.
There's no secret to that. I would say exploration, and learn what people are doing and try to do something different.
Mm.
And I think while you were searching this different and unique thing, you were exploring a bunch of other things that there might be not right for that moment, you know, but you see that eventually in the future, this thing that you're like not using right now, you're going to apply for something else, you know. And I think it's part of the because actually there's no right or wrong in the design kind of thing, you know. It's what is more pleasant visually and what is not. But exploration wise, you can do whatever you want, for sure.